What underpins a world order is always the financial system. And what we're seeing in the world today, I think, is we are on the brink of a dramatic change where we are about to, and I'll say this boldly, we're about to abandon the traditional system of money and accounting and introduce a new one. And the new accounting is what we call blockchain. It means digital. It means having a almost perfect record of every single transaction that happens in the economy, which will give us far greater clarity over what's going on. It also raises huge dangers in terms of the balance of power between states and citizens. Most people think that digital money is crypto and private, but what I see are superpowers introducing digital currency. The Chinese were the first. The US is on the brink, I think, of moving in the same direction. The Europeans have committed to that as well.
Instead of working together to push Klaus Schwab's World Economic Forum plan based on United Nations policies, work together instead for our country. Klaus Schwab's life by subscription, quote, is really serfdom, it's slavery. Billionaire globalist corporations will own everything: homes, factories, farms, cars, furniture. And everyday citizens will rent what they need, if their social credit score allows. The plan of the Great Reset is that you will die with nothing. To pull off this evil plan, Klaus Schwab's World Economic Forum will need to take more than just material possessions from Australians. Senators in this very chamber today who support the Great Reset threaten our privacy, freedom and dignity. Yes, they're in this Senate chamber. One Nation vehemently opposes the Great Reset, the Digital Identity Bill, theft of agricultural land use, forcing farmers off their land, and all of the Great Reset. One Nation has a comprehensive plan to bring our beautiful country back to sustainable prosperity. And in the months ahead, we will be rolling that plan out. Instead of Lib Lab pushing Klaus Schwab's Great Reset with the tagline, "You will own nothing and be happy," One Nation advocates the Great Resist. We stand for a world where individuals and communities have primacy over predatory globalist billionaires and their quizzling bureaucrats, politicians and mouthpiece media. One Nation accepts the challenge to provide a better future for everyday Australians. We have one flag, we are one community, and we are one nation.
Founded in 1971 by Klaus Schwab, the World Economic Forum is steeped in authoritarianism and Marxist ideology. It's an ideology which is creeping into governments across the world. To quote Schwab himself when speaking about the Canadian Parliament,
"We penetrate the cabinets." So yesterday I was at a reception for Prime Minister Trudeau, and I know that half of this cabinet, or even more, half of this cabinet are actually young global leaders of the World Economic Forum.
That's true in Argentina as well.
It's true in Argentina, and it's true in France now. I mean, with the president, who is a young global leader.
The World Economic Forum promotes globalist issues such as climate change, so-called systemic racism and sexism, and creating an online digital identity. However, closer inspection reveals the World Economic Forum is an anti-capitalist, anti-free market organisation that seeks to subvert Western values and political processes. And they are very organised and very well funded. Their message is designed to appear harmless when in fact the ideology that underpins it is revolutionary and destructive. They train aspirational leaders in their ideology and help them make connections in spheres including politics, business and the arts. The World Economic Forum has consistently advocated for the harshest and most extreme COVID measures possible, including lockdowns, mandatory vaccinations, vaccine passports and mask mandates, despite these policies assaulting many of our basic liberties. The Forum believes that your freedoms should be minimised to prevent the imminent climate catastrophe, the one that's coming for 10 years in the last 50 years, by the way. The central theme of the World Economic Forum's material is what they call the Great Reset, which is Klaus Schwab's term for the opportunity the pandemic has presented to reimagine and reinvent the economic policies of the West. The term comes from Schwab directly himself with his 2020 book entitled The Great Reset. In a now deleted video titled 8 Predictions for the World in 2030, the World Economic Forum claimed that you'll own nothing and you'll be happy, a slogan that hits the same dystopian note as work makes you free and ignorance is strength. You don't have to be a political philosopher to figure out that if you own nothing, the state owns everything. There's a word for this. It's called communism. The World Economic Forum and its affiliates shamelessly promote the abolition of private property, a central facet of Karl Marx's demented utopian ideology which led to the deaths of tens of millions of people worldwide in the 20th century. No matter how sophisticated the World Economic Forum tries to make the abolition of private property around the world sound, the fantasies of Karl Marx always lead to the crushing of individuals' liberties and lives and the expansion of the state's tyranny and power. It is imperative that we pay close attention to the World Economic Forum and do all that we can to preserve liberty and reduce government intrusion in our lives. And if we fail to do so, the anti-democratic forces in the West will continue to march on, and we may wake up to an Australia that we no longer recognise. Australians deserve to know the extent to which the World Economic Forum's influence and infiltration of our country and how far it has gone, and we're going to find out.
Recall we mentioned the United Nations Habitat 1 plan that came down at the Vancouver Convention in 1976. Under this plan, all humans that once lived on farms and in rural areas, so-called wildlands, will be relocated to cities, now referred to as human settlements.
And the idea is that if you concentrate populations into specific areas or zones, less energy usage, less water usage, and less transportation. So people will have less reason to leave home. They'll stay in their homes. They may even work out of their homes. And so they're not going to be using their cars, they're not going to be using energy, and they're not going to be using water.
Since, as we saw earlier, the UN is not big on property rights, it should come as no surprise that the first private property to be phased out will be single-family homes, what socialists at UN headquarters consider suburban sprawl. Instead, we the people will live in apartments and condos in megacities near railroad tracks. Our super-tall dwelling units will all be built to UN-specified building codes authorized by ICLEI, COGS, the ADA, and a myriad of NGOs and other friends of sustainable development. While the animals run wild in continental corridors, we the humans will live in transit villages and smart cities.
Smart growth, or new urbanism, is that ideology that says that you shouldn't have more space than you actually need. So if you're a couple of people living in a 3-bedroom house, well, you don't need that extra space. So why do you have it?
There's a clear, concerted effort to make it really just about as miserable as possible to exist and use your own private transportation, own your own home. All impetus and incentive, in financial and otherwise, is to convince people that it is unsustainable to live in your own home, have air conditioning. It is their duty as a human being, as a global citizen, you see. You basically exist and little more.
Our high-rise, stack and pack dwelling units, complete with smart meters and smart heating systems, will make sure no one uses too much energy. And if they do, the energy police, with help from the neighbors and eye-on-the-street surveillance systems, will be right there to handle the situation.
If they can put 1,000 people in one building, it's a whole lot easier to know what they're doing, where they're going, and how they're thinking than it is if you got 1,000 people living in a rural or suburban area. And so the stack and pack is multi-story buildings, multiple families living in the same spot, walking in and out of the same door, always being able to be managed. And smart meters play a big role in that management, as they can measure everything that you do in your life when you're using smart appliances.
If you have a garden or a single-family residence, while you're watering your garden, You're maybe have more than one bathroom, you're taking too many showers, you're using more than your 10 gallons of water a day. And this is unsustainable. So you need to be removed from your single family residence.
Anybody that's got a couple of acres of land and his own water supply and can grow his own food, these people are a threat to the collectivist society, because they aren't going to go to the politicians and say, please feed me, please clothe me, please give me shelter. That's the secret behind Agenda 21. They want people out of the country. They want corporations out there growing all the food and that kind of thing, but they don't want anybody living out there.
To describe human settlements and the food sheds that sustain them as modern-day concentration camps might be a little over the top, because with no cars, parking lots, or air travel, everyone will walk and use bikes, so they will be fit and healthy. At least as healthy as the genetically modified foods they are forced to eat will allow.
This crisis has shown us that, first of all, things can shift very rapidly when we put our minds to it and when we feel the immediate emergency to our livelihoods. And second, that clearly the system, I mean, you mentioned it earlier, that we had before is not sustainable. So I see it as a tremendous opportunity to really to have this great reset and to use this huge flows, of money, to use the increased levers that policymakers have today in a way that was not possible before, to create a change that is not incremental, but that we can look back and we can say this is the moment where we really started to position, nature at the core of the economy.
See, they want you to live a miserable life, owning nothing, and eventually die with nothing. And of course, you will leave nothing to your offsprings. That's if you're able to have any offsprings, because part of their plan is to reduce the population, and within that is to destroy the reproductive system of men and women. And they've been doing that gradually for a very long time. The culling of the people, right? They've been doing that. Everything has been weaponized. And the most recent is the juicy juice that they put inside people. And it's come to their attention that this kill shot poison that was introduced into the system of the people, it attacks not only your immune system, but also your reproductive system. So they want you to live a miserable life, owning nothing. A very miserable life. That's the plans they have for you. That's why I put together a couple of the clips you saw in the beginning of this video here, to kind of like show you where their mind is at, so you are not willfully ignorant of who is doing what to you. Because this is their tactics, is part of their tactics is to pit people against one another. So while you are fighting against yourself, they are doing exactly what they want to do without you being aware of it, right? A lot of people have no clue about the Agenda 2020, Agenda 2030, which Agenda 2030 is now in full effect. Within that Agenda 2030 that's where you get your Great Reset, right? It's where you get your Build Back Better, your sustainable development, your climate change, which will introduce a carbon footprint, net zero, the Green New Deal. So all these terms, these terminologies they use is to make it seem, which G. Edward Griffin, in part of the clip you saw, he mentioned that they make it look good, but behind that, the real agenda behind all this terms, sustainable development. When you hear something like that, to sustain something is actually a good thing, but that isn't exactly what they mean when they say that, right? Talk about smart cities, right? Which is just an acronym to something very nefarious, to a system that you'll be enclosed in, right? Sort of a prison planet. Can't even call it a prison planet because it will be sectioned off in this small districts, fighting over scraps, looking to take away your farms. They've been doing that already, right? They've been gradually doing that, right? Taking away your livelihood, making life, the human experience, a living hell, to the point where a lot of people are willing to just give up, right? Which also is part of the agenda. If you give up and just call it quits and take your own life, well, you make it easier for them. You see? You make it easier for them. That is all in the works. So you got to understand this. You got to understand what is being done to you, what is being done to the world, what is being done to the human experience. Here it is. It says the plan of the Great Reset is that you would die with nothing. Imagine that. So when they tell you we'll own nothing and be happy, could you imagine the state they will put you in? For you to own nothing and be happy, you're just happy for whatever scraps they give you, right? Be like, oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, for them to get you there means they will break you down. They will totally break you down to the point where a little bit of here, a little bit there will be enough for you. Just for the fact that you get to drink water, right, will be enough for you. Can't even be thinking about owning homes and owning farms and being self-sufficient. Can't even think about that because you would just be okay getting to eat some Twinkies or getting to eat some GMOs and lab-grown meat. That's how bad things would have gotten, right? So you would die with nothing. This is the Australian Senator Malcolm Roberts dropping serious truth bombs and about Klaus Schwab's World Economic Forum and its dystopian Great Reset agenda in the Australian Parliament. It says Klaus Schwab's life by subscription is really serfdom. It's slavery. Billionaire globalist corporations will own everything: homes, factories, farms, cars, furniture, and everyday citizens will rent what they need if their social credit score allows. So the fact that you will even rent something, it has to be on the terms that you've been a little good boy or a little good girl, right? You have to please Uncle Sam. Uncle Sam have to be okay with the way you've been lipping off on social media, right? With your opinions, and have you been a rebel? Have you been a dissenter, right? Which brings us here. Speaking on the World Government Summit panel titled, "Are we ready for a new world order?" Well, are we? Because they are. They can't wait to get it all on and popping, right? That's what they're talking about here. It's included in this clip. It says a global leader for tomorrow for the WEF, Pippa Malmgren, it says announces the arrival of central bank digital currencies, the CBDCs. It means having an almost perfect record of every single transaction that happens in the economy, which will give us far greater clarity over what's going on. It also raises huge dangers in terms of the balance of power between states and citizens. It says, don't worry, the TV told you that CBDCs are just a conspiracy theory, so you can keep your head firmly and comfortably buried in the sand, totally sheltered from reality. And this is, you don't want to be here. You know, your head buried in the sand, thinking to yourself, well, if I don't pay no mind, it wouldn't come to me. Well, whether you're ready or not, like that's why they say here, are we ready for a new world order? So whether you are ready or not, whether you think it's just a conspiracy theory, whether, you know, you've been scoffing at it, right? People trying to warn you about these things, you call them crazy, right? Label them all kinds of names, just so you can live in your bubble. Well, that bubble is about to bust. And when it does bust, guess what? You will be caught in the harsh reality that will hit you from all angles. It will hit you so hard, it will break you. Because you wouldn't know where to turn, right? It's where you would just consent to anything. Any agenda they push, you'll be like, okay, just give me my daily bread. Just give me something, right? Just give me something. Digital identity, okay, I'll go with the mark of the beast. I'll go with it. Just give me a sense of normalcy. Just take away this hell. Because we're about to live in a holy hell. Before we go any further, this is Isaiah, the 10th chapter, and the first verse. It says, what sorrow awaits the unjust judges and those who issue unfair laws. All praises to the Most High, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Ruach HaKodesh. Double honors to apostles and elders of Great Millstone who taught us this truth and continue to teach us this truth. Peace, salutation, shalom, shalom, shalom. To all you brothers and sisters out there that are of the household of faith, beginning with 144,000 mighty men of the house of Israel, down to the men, women, and children that are allotted to be delivered in these latter days, who are all of the elect, and to the brothers that are pushing this gospel in all sincerity and in all honesty, to you all I say shalom, right? You know, it is a whole lot is going on in these days and age, these days and time, and these latter days, because we are truly in the end times. You got to be totally oblivious of your surrounding to think that, you know, nothing is going on, because it is. You know, it is going on in all facets of your life, right? All these things are beginning to directly affect us now, right? You can't just wish it away. It's right here. It is here to stay. And a lot of these problems we're having is already being infused. They've already been infused with laws, right? That's why we put with the laws now. That is affecting us. It's become part of the laws that they've, you know, the legislation, the policies that they've signed in. And we are suffering it, right? So I have to pull the scripture out in Isaiah, the 10th chapter, and the first verse. It says, what sorrow awaits the unjust judges and those who issue unfair laws. And there you have it. They issue unfair laws, very unfair, to the point where they're trying to make it to where you will own nothing and be happy, right? Can you imagine that? The whole human experience is about owning something and living, you know, when your time for you to go, you know, move on to the next world, to the next dimension, so to speak, guess what? You'll be able to leave something for your offsprings, right? For your children. You leave them some inheritance, right? But, well, they're putting in laws to a point where you will totally own nothing and be happy, right? Just your day-to-day, not even, can't even call it necessities, your day-to-day scraps, you know? Treat you like a dog. Well, they already see you as such. They call you a useless eater. They call you a cattle, a goyim, right? A goyim, which nothing but an animal, right? So for them to take away all this stuff from you, meanwhile, they are living in high places, man. Living in palatial mansions and castles and, you know, the best places, eating the best foods and, you know, doing everything their heart so desires. And here we are fighting over scraps, barely surviving, right? People are barely surviving. That's why the second verse goes on to say, they deprive the poor of justice and deny the rights of the needy among my people, right? They deprive the poor of justice. The poor are suffering because of the unfair laws that have been put in place, right? They tax you out the wazoo, right? You're paying tax on everything, tax on tax on tax on tax on tax. It is incredibly astonishing how much tax we got to pay. And it's only going to get worse with all this tariffs and things and they're put in place to even make life more of a living hell, misery. Right? It says they prey on widows and take advantage of orphans. Right? A lot of information have come out to say that child protective services, this is where a lot of the child trafficking happens from, right? So they prey on you, even, widows use all these gifts that they give you, EBT cards and child Title 4D, right? Child support to get you, to put you in a bind. A lot of women will start thinking, oh, I don't need no man. I can do without a man. The government got me. So they prey on you, man. You see? It goes on to say, what will you do when I will punish you? And who is it this scripture directed to? Well, it's directed to the wicked elites. Those that tell you will own nothing and be happy. Those that are pushing for carbon footprints. To monitor how much carbon, knowing damn well that we are carbon-based individuals, right? So when they say they're going to get net zero, you are part of that net zero. You see? It says, what will you do when I punish you, when I send disaster upon you from a distant land? To whom will you turn for help? Where will your treasures be saved? Right? They have all their heart can wish. They have it all. So when the Lord remembers you and comes to judge you, where are you going to hide your treasures, right? All this money you've got, your ill-gotten gains, right? Your ill-gotten gains. Where are you going to keep it safe? See? That is a judgment that is coming for the wicked elites, for all they've done. Right? For all they've done. Brings us here real quick in Psalms, the 94th chapter and the 20th verse. It says, can unjust leaders claim that God is on their side? Right? Can they do that? Well, even though they say in God we trust and God this and God that, guess what? They're lying through their teeth. What God are they talking about? Clearly, it's not the God of the Bible. It's not Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. That's a fact. So it's leaders whose decrees permit injustice. So they put things in laws that are not lawful, that are there to oppress, permit injustice. There's no way in hell people are supposed to be taxed the way they are being taxed, right? There's no real justice in the land. Cops kill the citizens and get scot-free, especially if the citizens are of the chosen people, the true biblical Israelites, right? They murder you out on the streets and they go scot-free. You see? So it goes on to say they gang up against the righteous. They gang up against you, man, with their laws, their policies, and ultimately physically, right? Physically, when they told you that you had to get the juicy juice, that was how they ganged up against you. A lot of people didn't know that. They run up and give them your arm, and they put that thing inside of you. Now look, through. It says, and condemn the innocent to death. And condemn the innocent to death. See that? That's how they get down. That's right there. Part of this says here, the plan of the Great Reset is that you would die with nothing. Right? They condemn you to death with nothing to show for it. It's like you didn't even live. It's like you weren't even here. It says, but the Lord is my fortress. My God is the mighty rock where I hide. It says, God will turn the sins of evil people back on them. See that? What goes around comes around, they say. So all their wickedness will go back on them. It says, he will destroy them for their sins. The Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, our God, will destroy them. Believe that. He will totally jack them up for all they've done. Look at them sitting in these places, deciding your fate. Deciding your fate, right? To have all the CBDC, like it says here, is speaking on the world. I read that. There's another one under here. It says, under the United Nations plan for total global control, known as Agenda 21, of which Agenda 2030 is a mere milestone. It says all humans who once lived on farms in rural areas are to be forcibly relocated into densely populated smart cities, quote unquote smart, right? It says referred to as human settlements. It says from the documentary Unsustainable, right? That's actually what it is. It's not sustainable. It is unsustainable. Put you in this sections, in these districts. They showed you that in the Hunger Games. People were living like that. You're fighting just to be alive, right? Kill one another for their entertainment. It says the UN's agenda for world domination. Watch the full documentary here, right? I included all these clips. And then here you have Klaus Schwab himself talking about, it says founder of WEF, Klaus Schwab, has decided that we have to get used to a total erosion of privacy. In other words, they will know everything you do. This is why they're trying to put you in the small cities. So they can, everything you do will be monitored. When you take a shit, how much shit you took for that day, excuse my French, when you fart, right? How it smells, what you're doing with your significant other, right? You want to see all of that. Freaks, you know, that's what they are, man. Real freaks, man. Watching you every move, everything you do, right? Says if you have nothing to hide, you shouldn't be afraid. Well, he says that. Easy for him to say. Nobody's monitoring him. Are they going to do the same thing that we also would know everything they're doing when they go to their various Epstein Islands, right? Are they going to allow us, you know, the privilege to see what they're doing in there, right? I mean, hey, if you have nothing to hide, right? But nah, the rules are for you, not for them. You think you're going to know what Klaus Schwab is doing, or those that are of his ilk? You're going to know what they're doing. Of course not. The rules are for you, strictly for you. It says, does anybody remember electing this guy the de facto dictator of the world? Because I certainly do not. I do not also. Unlike father, like daughter. This is Klaus Schwab's daughter, Nicole Schwab. You know, COVID has shown that drastic changes to the fabric of society can be imposed when people perceive an immediate sense of emergency. That's why they say you can't let a good crisis go to waste. They have that term out there. So they will create this problem, and people start reacting to that problem. Guess what? They will introduce a solution, which the solution is already premeditated. That was the plan in the first place, to implement the quote unquote solution. They can't just pull the solution out of the hat like a magician pull a rabbit out of the hat. Guess what? They have to first of all introduce you with a problem, right? They have to introduce you with a problem. That's where you get your great reset from. It goes on to say a mechanism that can be applied to the climate crisis in order to accelerate the WEF's Great Reset agenda. And there you have it. There you have it. You're dealing with some evil Knievel type individuals that are looking to bring evil upon the earth. And I don't care how they bring it, they want their NWO to be established. And before they do that, they will make this life a living hell for you and me. Right? So I will pull this scripture out in Proverbs, the 16th chapter, and the 4th verse. It says, "The Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai hath made all things for himself. Yea, even the wicked for the day of evil." So the wicked elites that run the whole show, they were created by the God of the Bible. Everything was created by the God of the Bible. The good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, all of that. He created all of that. And he created everything for a purpose. Yes, he created the wicked elites who are Edomites for a purpose. And part of their purpose is the day of evil. And we are rapidly approaching the day of evil. Right? A lot of people wouldn't know how to react to this day of evil because they will be caught off guard, man. They will be caught off guard. And when that happens, man, you're on your own, man. You know, you will totally drown in this overflowing water of chaos. You wouldn't know which way to turn because while you had liberty, you played this whole truth for a joke, right? You had prophets, you had brothers, you had men of the Lord out there warning you, telling you that, man, take heed, it's about to go down. But you scoffed at it, you scorned at it. To you, just some crazy dudes out there talking crap, right? Well, we are approaching the day of evil. We are drastically approaching the day of evil. It brings us here in Jeremiah, the 17th chapter, the 17th verse. It says, "Be not a terror unto me." So Jeremiah is saying, "The Lord be not a terror unto me. Thou art my hope in the day of evil." We just read in Proverbs here, the 16th chapter and the 4th verse. The wicked are created for the day of evil. So we are about to approach the day of evil, you know, and you want hope. Imagine when the power grid is shut off, EMP attacks, right? Lawlessness in the streets, anarchy, right? People just going at each other's throats, you know, race wars, class wars, civil wars, all kinds of wars happening all around you, right? Guns blazing, people going gung-ho out in the streets, looting, shooting, anything on sight, cannibals looking to eat you. Why? Because there's no food to eat. Shut down everything. Can't go nowhere. Can't come in, can't go out. Martial laws. See what I'm saying? Concentration camps. These are all part of the day of evil. And we are about to live through it. They're already telling you that, truckers are telling you that, man, we are no longer getting goods like we're supposed to be getting. You know, trucks are empty. What do you think that is going to culminate to? Some crazy famine out here. There will be no food. Go to the stores, you ain't get nothing. You know, you're looking at your children, they're looking at you hungry and a mug, right? Calling you daddy, mommy, we want to eat, we're hungry, right? No electric lights, nothing, no AC, right? No taking showers. Because the power grid is directly connected to the water system. So when one goes, the other go. You see? This is the times we're about to all face. You know? It will be pure hell. So you need hope in this hell. That the Most High Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai will be your hope. It says, "Let them be confounded that persecute me." Who are those? Well, it goes back to the wicked elites, those that are bringing in the day of evil, the wicked. And their sole purpose on earth is to accomplish evil upon the earth. That's why the world is is the way it is, right? Entertainment is pure garbage. People sell their souls so they can do the bidding of the elites, right? Filling the minds of your children with filth. It's a goddamn cesspool out here, you know? It says, let them be confounded that persecute me, but let me not be confounded. This is our prayer right here. It says, let them be dismayed, but let me not be dismayed. Bring upon them the day of evil. So when that day of evil is coming, let it return upon those bringing that evil and destroy them with double destruction. This is our prayer right here. You know, this is our prayer. The wicked elites, they get to taste of their own medicine, right? All the wickedness they've done, all the evil they've done, they've been raising hell, pure hell upon the earth. And finally, they will get their just due, right? Not only just due, but double. Double the portion for them. Rightfully so. Rightfully so. For all they've done, they got to get double, man. See? There's our prayer to be protected in these times, because it will get ugly. Believe you me, it will get ugly. Real ugly, to the point where the earth will be unrecognizable. You'll be like, what the hell is going on? Right? You know, just a little something, you know, hopefully it gets you in the mind of taking heed and understanding that you cannot do this alone. You need Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai as your protection, and to understand there is a war being waged against you. And your only line of defense is in the word of the Lord, in the gospel. And with that, all praises to the Most High, Yahweh B'Hashem, Yahweh Shai, B'Hashem, Chahakodash. Double honors to apostles and elders of Great Millstone. See you next time, Lord willing. Shalom. Shalom.